you can do as much due diligence as you want. You will never know what's really going on in an acquired company. What's the dynamics? What are the people? What's the knowledge? A lot of time needs to be spent on listening, and instead of just take your process and apply them there. No, listen to what they're doing right now, what tools they're using, what things they figured out, what works for their product, for their stakeholders, for their customers, and see if you can learn from that.
Welcome to Productside Stories, the podcast where we reveal the very real and raw lessons learned from product leaders and thinkers all over the world. I'm your host, Rena Lexon, CEO of Productside. Let's dive into today's episode. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Stephanie Redl, the Director of Product Operations at Descartes. Stephanie, why don't you first introduce yourself and tell us how you got into product management?
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be here. It's my first podcast, so I'm a little bit nervous. But I'm happy to tell my story because it's a fun one. So I studied business information systems, and at the university, 5 years long, nobody ever told me about product management. But when I got, first job interviews, it was like, okay, product management. I did the whole chain of things at the university, figure out how to do something, what problem to solve, and then also doing the coding and the testing and the documentation and explaining it to people, especially during my master thesis. And I really enjoyed the first part, figuring out the problem and how could I solve it. And that was something that got me excited, although I didn't have a name for it yet at that time. So when I got interviewed for a job, it's like, okay, product management sounds like this is what it is. And I started working for Pixie. It's the e-commerce ERP system in Germany. And I started playing out 1 year just writing documentation and learning everything about the product. And eventually I was like, okay, I actually want to help shape the product and, help the customers with their problems. So I started growing into this role more and more. And I got to love it. And, I'm I read a lot of books, and I started to educate myself specifically on product owners, product managers, agile processes, Scrum, and all of these things. And, it just got me even more excited about product management. So,
Well, Stephanie, I think you are a very unique person, a product manager at heart, like you say, and also somebody who actually likes to document. So this is something that I think a lot of companies have trouble with is just recording and having all of this knowledge live in people's heads and not actually in a system. So can you tell us maybe how you got this skill set and maybe some advice you have for people who don't really have that today?
Well, I don't know where to start. There's so much advice, so I think my passion for writing comes from the passion of reading. I'm reading so many books and I want to do something with what I'm reading. I want to turn it into something actionable and apply it to my day-to-day and share it. I get excited about what I read, and I was like, everybody needs to know this. So how can I share this? And the best way to do this is write it down in your own words and then rephrase it until it becomes yours. And then, when you have it written, then you can kind of convert it in all different types of contents. You can make, presentations, you can really easily make videos out of it and all those kind of things. And this is what it is for me really is enabling others by giving them the gist of it. And that's what kind of fuels my writing and my documenting. And honestly, I'm also a very lazy person. If you ask me the same question twice and I need to answer it in an email, I'm like, no way, I'm going to do this again. So I write an article and I answer you with a link. So next time I get a question, I just have to pull up the link. And that's just how it, I got this growing archive of things.
Yeah, you can start to train people to stop, to go to the wiki, just go to the wiki, right? But you need to have one to begin with. And I think a lot of companies, they really struggle with, I hear it all the time, we do product management so differently. And that has real business implications for enterprises because a lot of them, they go through just not being able to even manage their resources well. I often hear product leaders say, I can't even bring somebody else from a different department because it's like onboarding a whole new person. to
Yeah.
my team because I'm doing things differently. I have different expectations for my team.
Yeah.
And I feel like product operations function really helps, especially with some of these larger companies where they have a lot of people that they need to manage.
Yeah.
Product operations helps with the standardization aspect of it. Is that your
Yeah.
experience?
Yeah. So maybe I can just quickly tell the story of how I got into product operations because it's
Let's do
kind of
that.
part of that. So as I said, I was in this small company compared to company I'm in today. We're like, I don't know, 70, 80 people over 3 locations, Germany and Slovenia. And we got acquired by Descartes, this huge company from Canada. And it's like, okay, so what's happening now? So I was for like 5, 6 years, I think, I was the only product manager or product person kind of in the company. And the only thing that I could turn to was like books and online resources to learn. And I went to training courses, all of this. But I never had anyone to like the day to day product brainstormings. Like, I have this problem. How do you solve it? This just wasn't there. And then we got acquired, and I was like, oh my gosh, there's this huge company now. They have so many products and so many product managers. So I finally got to meet people that are, like me and that I can talk to. And there was not much. I couldn't find them. There was no community. There was no platform they, could mingle around with and like help each other. They were just like everybody for himself. For each product, kind of one product manager, maybe bigger products, more, but it was just that wasn't together. So that was one thing I noticed. The other one was they already had, I don't know if you know AHA,
Mhm.
the AHA
Yeah,
roadmaps,
cool.
and they had that tool, but there was very little adoption and very little like standardization or guidance. And when I opened this the first time, I was like, oh my gosh, you're kidding me. There's like an actual tool that helps me do my job. So I can get out of Word documents that are just splattered around, and I can like, not just have Jira tickets that R&D is working on, but I can kind of zoom in and out, like high level roadmap and low level release plan and sprint plan and so on, just all in one tool and very easy capabilities. So that was, those two things, community and AHA as a tool. And, I got really lucky that I got to speak to the EVP of product management at Descartes about it. And I was like, hey, I got some ideas and I'm like really excited about this. Do you think I could help shape some of it? Because, like my passion for sharing all those things that I learned and enabling others together with those two big things that I saw. And he was very open minded and created a new position that they just never had before. And it's really funny because we were sitting together, like I visited him like for 3 days and we put sticky notes all around. Like, how do we like pull off this thing? Where do we start? What do we do? And we were actually even Googling, like, what should we call it? What should be your position, your team? And we couldn't find product ops wasn't the thing back then. So we actually called it the Office of Product Management and later then renamed it to Product Operations when it became a big thing. And so this is kind of how it started, and where I started also to focus this AHA adoption, and that automatically got me in touch with a lot of product managers. So I started to figure out like, okay, you guys all really know a lot. Let's start talking to each other. So we started, just simply scheduling bi-weekly knowledge sharing sessions. So like every second Tuesday, at 11 a.m., there's like a topic on the agenda. You don't have to join in, but you can. And we talk about our products, or we talk about product management best practices. We talk about, I don't know, whatever, is relevant or, people think is cool to share. And it was like, it started with like 15 people being there regularly, and it grew. So, now like, I don't know, at least half of the product management team is always on the call, and another half of that half that's missing is watching the recording. And it really started to get us into this mindset and, thinking to start growing together. So I think so product operations for me is a lot about this enabling and let the people talk to each other, because I cannot coach everyone, it's just not scalable. So we really, and I think this sharing of stories and talking to each other like really makes it a nice learning experience because it's hands-on and not just theory.
So Stephanie, I love that you definitely have the heart of a product manager. You saw a problem and it was an internal problem for the organization in terms of just how do you do things, and realizing that the fragmented way in which Descartes was approaching product management. And we should talk also about just that happens a lot with organizations that go through a lot of mergers as well,
Yeah,
is identifying, okay, this is a problem. It's a problem worth solving. And
yeah,
it sounds like you almost approached it like a product
yeah,
as well,
yeah.
right?
Yeah,
So,
I was talking about like yeah, the Office of
yeah,
Product Management is like product managementizing product management.
I know it's super meta,
Yeah.
but it sounds like, because that this really is a problem that exists for a lot of organizations. What do you think is the primary value proposition of product operations?
I think product operations. So I didn't say like so. Product operations community is an important one. Tools and process is an important one, and the other third pillar I would like to add is data, data, data.
Hmm.
Not everybody needs to be an expert in tools like Power BI or data transformation, but what they need to be an expert in is understanding how their products are used. And for me, product ops, that's really the value proposition. We are enabling them to focus on the content of their work and not worry about how to get there, what tools to use, where to click. This should, just become a natural thing. Like, you're brushing your teeth, you know what you do, you don't think about it. But the outcome is you're, enabling health. So it's like, I don't want product managers to figure out how to use AHA. I want them to focus on figuring out the strategy, the priorities, the collaboration with the R&D team, what's cooking for their customers, for the market, what's going on with the competition. And the same is with the data. I don't want them to learn all those tools. It's just not scalable if everybody now goes on, trainings to figure out Power BI. But using a report and interpreting the data that they are familiar with, they can do. And they should be focusing on. And I think that's what it is. Product managers being able to focus on how they can create the biggest value, and product ops being this enabler function that makes the groundwork for them to be able to do that.
So I don't know, because you only have your experience, but if you think about it, where are there maybe some challenges between the relationship of product management and product operations? Where could there be some issues, and how do you encourage people to address them?
So the thing that I'm noticing is don't rely too much on product ops to tell you what to do. So I think every product manager still needs to have their own drive to learn and get better every day, and not wait for the product operations team to come around and say, do this and do it like that. Or, they need to like adapt it to the context that they are in, to their audience, their stakeholders, their market, their product, and take the best what helps them grow. And the other challenge I think is if product ops is not actually like listening in.
Mhm.
It's like, for sure, I have a lot of experience in product management, and I think I know what kind of are the challenges and the problems they are facing. But unless I actually talk to the product managers and watch them do it, and like say like, okay, I see you're struggling with this. Let me go back, go do some research and come back and see how I could, help you and support you with it. So for sure, it needs to be like a two-way. The
Yeah.
enablement needs to be focused on what they need, but they also need to do some work themselves and not just lean back and hope that everything just falls into place.
I mean, you're thinking like a product manager. The product management function is your customer, and you need to
Yeah.
talk to them to make sure that you understand their needs.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that
Exactly.
makes a lot of sense. Okay,
Yeah.
so I want to talk to you about community, because this is something that a lot of enterprises, they always say, we want our product managers talking to each other. We want to build a community. But I've even been in organizations where they have a community, they have something set up, and it's crickets. There's
Yeah.
nobody engaging, there's
Yeah.
nobody moderating, right? So, how do you make a successful community?
Yeah. So, like I said, we started with this bi-weekly knowledge sharing sessions. And we also started with a channel on, I don't know, if Microsoft Yammer, now they renamed it to Viva Engage. It's kind of like a, internal social network. So we had a product management group there. And I was like, yeah, if you have a question or if you just want to share something, just post. And it was exactly like this, silence. And so I did last year some more research into how to, successfully build a community of practice. And I think people aren't comfortable sharing in public, so the whole company could read it. And that was why nothing was happening on the social network. So I was like, okay, let's make it a little bit more private. And we actually started a group chat with just the product managers inside, but also the leadership team. So really, it goes up to the EVP, up and down the chain. There's no like, I wanted everybody in there. And what essentially happened almost immediately was there's always some that are more outspoken. So they started posting questions, and across the board, other end of the world, somebody answered because they had that same problem. And I think that really like helps it going. There's also lots of joking going on there, which I think helps. So it just got more informal, and I think that really helped to get going. So that's kind of one cornerstone for this ad hoc. I have a question. Can somebody please help me out? And the other one is like the knowledge sharing sessions, a more structured format where I believe product ops can play a big role in figuring out good topics and actually going to the people and say, hey, would you contribute? I have this topic. I heard you were like really like have your ears open to find them and pull them out on the stage. That's kind of how I like to describe it. And nobody ever said no to me. That's the thing. Like we also did an internal survey, and we actually asked the product managers, like, how many hours per week or so would you be willing to spend on sharing your knowledge with the rest of the team? Everybody said they would do it, and also really big hours. I did not expect this. So I think product managers by themselves are people who want to be in touch and share what they know. You just sometimes need to, nudge them a little bit. And I think that's where the moderator, in this case, product ops, is really important to just also go to people and say like, hey, don't be afraid. Just write in the chat. Nobody's going to bite you. And whenever somebody asks me a question that I cannot answer, I say, could you put it in the chat? And just like over time, people get more comfortable with it and, lose this fear of, I don't know if I should. Is that the right question? No, just do it. Nobody's going to bite you. There's no stupid questions, only stupid answers. Somebody said to me once.
I do think the psychology of people is very important. It also has to do with the culture. I even in a one-on-one setting, you might hear something where in a group setting, suddenly they're saying something completely different. Before a big meeting with a lot of people who are decision makers, I like to do something called nemawashi, which is you have the one-on-one discussions prior to the meeting so you understand what everybody's opinions are. So you're not surprised. And then I still got surprised. It's like group setting is very different. And then online, it's kind of interesting because in social networks where people are anonymous, right? They have different behaviors, but with the company type situation, I think people are just in general, they just don't want to, like you said, they don't want to seem stupid to their peers. And the reality is, it's everybody, once I see a question which is relevant to me, it's almost like, oh, I feel like I'm not stupid because somebody else is asking this. Isn't that right?
Yes, it is. That's, I think, why it's so important, especially at the beginning, to kind of set it up a little, So like, especially when you come across those questions, you're just like, hey, this would be really a good one for the chat, or even share it after the fact, just to kind of get it going a little bit. And I did read about this once, that like for every social network, there's this, 99-1 rule. 90% are just reading, 9% are commenting and maybe putting a like on, and just 1% are actively posting. And you just need to be okay with that. And because I also get outside all of those things, when I talk one-on-one with people, I get a lot of times this feedback, like, this was actually really helpful. Thank you for doing this. But I never saw a comment or a like from them, So that's why I have a strong belief I'm helping, and get the confirmation here and there, and I just plow on. That's kind of, just don't think about it, just do it.
That's a really, really good point. I didn't even think about it, but yeah, like all the social media, LinkedIn, etc. You
Yeah,
always see it. You always see a certain number of impressions, very few actually engage, and then
yeah,
fewer comment. And that's
yeah,
because of exactly what you're talking about. So I
yeah,
guess if you are a product leader or product operations leader and you're interested in setting up a community of practice, keep in mind that if you're trying to measure, is this working?
yeah,
That to kind of set your expectations well, right? Because
yeah,
you have 100 people and only 1% are going to comment, you're not going to get a lot of engagement. Is
yeah.
that the idea there?
I would say don't wait for it to naturally evolve, but actually really like pick your players and maybe even like I was reading about it. We are not doing it, but I was reading about it. Reward people for contributions, and I think that's a good point. And it doesn't need to be money or gifts. It can also be I reward you by giving you time. So if you're contributing, like with the knowledge sharing session, feel free to take a day to properly research and prepare it. This is okay. It's sometimes people just need this permission that they are allowed to do something that's not their core job, but something they actually do enjoy, sharing what they do at their core job or something that they learn or, something like that. And I think that's like in this every day we're so busy and meetings back to back culture to just say, it's okay. Take a day, pretend you're offline and just work on this. And then when you do the sharing, you get a lot of positive feedback. So that then starts driving the motivation to do it again. And once you did it the first time, the second time is not going to be so scary or so much effort. And, I think this is kind of how we're also are growing it over time. Give it time and set up your players. That's kind of how I would
Mm.
sum it up.
What are the players? Like the evangelizers? Do you have, for example, product managers who are, I don't know, they're not on the product ops teams, but they're kind of like moderators almost for the
No,
community?
so there's always people that are more extroverts.
Mhm.
They are not afraid to ask a question. So just point to them and say like, hey, can you like apply your extrovertism into this community? I want to like make it clear to them the community matters. So that they are, just kind of leading it by and showing the others that it's not so scary. Um,
So why does this community matter? Like,
the
what are the
community
benefits?
matters because we don't want to reinvent the wheel for every single product. We want like there was some really you can actually like really research PM community. You're gonna find stuff. I found some really good articles, and one of the examples that I think is really important for like inside an organization is share knowledge about the business and the other departments. Like, hey, does anybody have a tip how to speed up work with the legal team? It always takes so long to get their review through. Is there something, that I could do better so they are faster? Does somebody have experience with the questions they ask so I could prepare ahead of time? Or does somebody have a template for this? So, it's really this don't reinvent the wheel, but share this knowledge so everybody's faster and more efficient and doesn't do the same mistakes, across the organization multiple times.
So
Wherever.
it's really about making sure that people know that they're not alone, that they're able to learn from each other's mistakes.
Yeah.
And are you then seeing, are you able to, I don't know, do additional investment in the community from the perspective of events or, I think you spoke a lot about how product operations is also doing trainings internally.
Yeah.
So is that enabling more consistent behavior?
For sure is, because if I can, so I like to combine it. So, I'm like working out a new like SOP on like how to use AHA, like how to make a roadmap in AHA so that
Sure.
all the stakeholders internally and can understand how a roadmap looks like, where to find it. And there's no, this looks different. And, some are feature level, some are outcome based. No, we're all doing the same. So everybody, no matter where they sit in the organization, have the same level of expectation. So, that's like one example that we did recently. So I start with, figuring out an SOP. I run it with a pilot group, get their feedback to refine it, and then we're rolling it out to everyone. So first of all, with the community, I have a chance to speak to them of why we're doing this, to get their buy-in and what's in it for them. It's like it needs to be valuable content for them so that, they also chip in. And then I'm always like, when I see one that's like really standing out, like, look what, they did, I pull them up and I mention it. I'm saying like, hey, this is great. And so people start to look outside their little garden and see like, okay, so if those guys did this because of that, how about I also make it more my own based on what my stakeholders need? So I think people start to experiment a little bit more and, just get inspiration by seeing what others are doing. And this, I think it's like, you don't learn from theory, you learn from seeing it applied in practice. And I think that's what really the value of the community is, that
I think it's
everybody
also
chips in.
very I think it's also very valuable when you're talking about like large organizations, and we
Yeah,
just mentioned briefly, so I want to get back to it, that when companies also acquire other companies, it's an investment and you need to protect it. So you need to be
yeah,
very thoughtful about how do you then involve the um, new people in your
yeah,
process, and having a community, I think, really also serves as a bridge in
yeah,
that
to welcome
situation.
them. Yes.
Yeah.
That's another one I wanted to mention actually on the value of the community. It's like, so, imagine yourself, you're in a company of 2,500 employees and you have the feeling that you're the only product manager because you have no chance of speaking to anybody else. It is very frustrating and you really do feel lonely, and loneliness is not something humans are built for. So if we start, really investing in this community, we also get more engaged and happier employees because all of a sudden they don't feel alone anymore. They know other people are having the same problems, and they know that their doors are open. So you can go ask them and they're going to help you. And it's it goes both ways. And it's also, I came at a point, like I was doing product ops alone for Descartes, like for 4 years. And I was coming to a point like, guys, you have so much questions. I cannot do this all on my own. I need help. I need to scale this whole approach of helping each other and, also troubleshooting things. I'm not the only one who knows how to use AHA. So, pull in somebody else and say like, hey, can you help out this guy? You're also in the same time zone. I'm really like struggling here. And, that's kind of building up relationships and connections, and yeah, helps this remove this feeling of isolation, and also helps scale the message of product ops, kind of, the train the trainer approach, to spread the knowledge across.
So I do want to bring this up because I think it's important. A lot of companies, a lot of product managers work at companies that either get acquired or are in an acquisition process. And so I'm wondering, from a product operations standpoint, now that you've experienced it and been now on both sides,
Yeah.
how do you make the best of this? How do you make the most out of this investment?
So so from the position of uh, the one acquiring, I think it's really important to be open-minded. Like, not no two are the same. You never know. You can do as much due diligence as you want. You will never know what's really going on in an acquired company. What's the dynamics? What are the people? What's the knowledge? And so, I think a lot of time needs to be spent on listening, and instead of just take your process and apply them there. No, listen to what they're doing right now, what tools they're using, what things they figured out, what works for their product, for their stakeholders, for their customers, and see if you can learn from them. We did a lot of, I was part of such acquisition where, we had in our small little company a couple of, processes that eventually got rolled out across Descartes, because Descartes came in with this open mind saying like, hey, this looks actually really good. Let's play it through. How would this look if we put it on the whole organization? So we're learning a lot from the acquisitions, which makes our company as a whole better. And, I think that's really something, you might not be able to immediately translate it into revenue, but it is something that makes the acquired company super proud. We're a small company and we brought something into the big company. So they also start growing in like feeling part of it. It's not
Mm-hmm.
us versus them. I think that's a super important one, to get rid of this us versus them. But you're part of us now. So help us be better. Bring in your ideas, and you really need to kind of come in with this open mind. And the other one that I wanted to mention on this topic is, especially, we're like a big company, so we have departments and roles and responsibilities, and all these kind of things. When we acquire smaller companies, anything from 10 people to a couple of hundred, the founders are often really involved still. So we don't have clear, this is a product manager, this is a, I don't know, engineer, and this is a DevOps, and this is an IT person. Lots of those roles are intermingled in the same people. They wear a lot of hats, and we need to understand, who's wearing which hats, multiple, and then untangle and see okay, where's the best position for you in the bigger organization. And it happened to me. I was a product manager. That's what my role was when we got acquired, but my true heart was on the product operations. And by our EVP recognizing this and saying there is a place for you here, I want to hear your ideas, that enabled me to help the organization, the bigger one, and also help myself, because it helped me to keep the job exciting, because it's constantly changing and I can shape it. So if you take the time to identify those people and give them a chance to contribute, maybe in something that's not in their written title, I think that can really help. And like I said, it helps to remove this us versus them and put it into a big,
you're all together.
Yeah.
It's hard. I mean, you have to bridge a lot of things. You have to bring culture and practices.
Yeah.
And I really like this idea of just being open-minded, because if a company is not open-minded, then they can't learn from their acquisitions. And I think the learning, as to your point, is why, you're acquiring a business because they have something you don't have.
Yeah.
So being open-minded allows you to make the most
and
of
it's
it.
Also the flip side of that. When you are part of an acquired company, don't be shy. Speak up. If you see that something the big company is doing doesn't really make sense and you have some ideas on how to do it better, just say it. They may be having crazy titles. I never had to do with an EVP of product management before. We were a tiny company, we didn't have all those titles. And I was like, they are also just people that are trying to do a good job, and they are super happy about every idea that comes across. And the worst thing they can do is no, or not right now. But often they are really thankful for hearing the feedback. So that's kind of what I would say to everyone that's part of an acquired company. Don't just wait that things happen. Actively shape them and do speak up, because you will be surprised how thankful they will be when you hear the idea.
I would say that goes for anybody joining a new company, whether you've been acquired or you just accepted a new position.
Yeah, that's true.
I remember somebody who joined our company once used to play the new guy card. It was a guy. He would always play the new guy card, and it was over a year that he was with us, and he was still playing that. And I'm like, you should play that card all the time, because you should always be questioning why things are happening, and if they don't seem right, speaking up and having some way to do it, even if it's a fun way, it's extremely valuable. Well, Stephanie, I feel like I learned a lot about just how to create a community, how to think about product operations, enabling product management. What advice do you have for product managers or leaders today, and how they can make the most out of their careers?
So the biggest advice I would give to product managers, especially product managers who feel like they're constantly stressed, there's constantly back-to-back meetings, and there's constantly emails and chat messages and customer calls. I am a big fan. I'm reading a lot about personal productivity, and I came across Cal Newport. He wrote a couple of books, but the one that really changed how I think about my day-to-day, prioritization, time management, all those kind of things, is A World Without Email. So get that book and plow through and apply these things, because it's a lot about priorities. For sure, if you have back-to-back meetings and if you are opening your emails every day and take part in answering, you're not going to move the big rocks. But if you first put the big important things in, the things that matter to you, the things that make you happy and inspire and motivate you, that are the fun part of your job, put those things first. There will always be enough time to put the email still in. It's this, what is it? Big rocks, pebble and sand. If you put the sand in first, the big rocks won't fit. But if you put the big rocks in first, the sand is always going to fit. And this is, how I really see this, like, figure out what's the thing you care about the most and how you can bring the most value to your customers and users and the business. And all the rest will just like fold around it and anyway get done also. And you have more energy to do those things because you're so, inspired by the main part. And for product leaders, I recently came across Marty Kagan's books, and I would really recommend Empowered for product leaders, because the one thing that I really like about how he says it is this emphasis on coaching and strategy. I see too many product leaders that are just, micromanaging top down, instead of letting their product people like identify the problems, figure out solutions, collaborate with the engineers and with the customers on like making the best possible thing out, because they are in the details. They're right there. Let them do it. You don't have, like, if you're a couple of hierarchy levels away, you don't have all those details to make those decisions. So focus on coaching them, enabling them. Again, I think enabling is really one of my favorite words. Enable them to do a good job, and then just let go of it. And, focus on that part and focus on guiding them with questions. I was actually reading a biography of the Queen Elizabeth, and she was a master in this, guiding people by asking questions. And I think we can learn a lot from this approach in leadership and product coaching.
It's even the Socratic method, right? It's just
Yeah.
question.
Yeah.
Very interesting. And yeah, I completely agree with you. I think with any organization that we work with, we really do view the product leader as a change agent. And they're the ones who are really helping mold expectations of product management.
Yeah.
And if you are micromanaging, you're actually not doing your job. You need to be enabling, I'll use your word, your product managers with the tools and the knowledge and also the expectations. Because a lot of product managers, if you give them, they have to work with so many competing interests, competing trade-offs, like what's really expected of them to do. That's the role of the product leader to help answer.
Yeah.
So Stephanie, thank you so much for joining us today. How can our audience find you?
So you can find me on LinkedIn, and you can work with me if you just join Descartes. We're always on the lookout for great product people. So,
Well, thank you so much for sharing your insights with us today. And thank you all for tuning in to another episode of Productside Stories. I hope today's insights, I'm going to say, enable you and propel your product journey forward. Every challenge is just a lesson waiting to be learned. Visit us at productside.com for more free resources, including webinars, templates, our playbook, and other product wisdom repackaged for you. Again, my name is Rena Lexon, and until next time, keep innovating, keep leading, and keep creating stories worth sharing.